So now let us turn to God in prayer. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, as we gather here together this morning, we would ask that you would send your Spirit to be with us. You would help us to soar with you. That as your Spirit meets us, it would lead us on, not only in the power but also the joy of your Spirit. And that this joy will live and be with us throughout the coming week, so that we can be a sign of joy to others. We ask this in your Son's name. Amen.
Even when I fail. We look at this sun and see the God who cannot be seen. We look at this sun and see God's original purpose in everything created. For everything, absolutely everything, above and below, visible and invisible, rank after rank after rank of angels. Everything got started in him and finds its purpose in him. He was there before any of it came into existence and holds it all together, right up to this moment. And when it comes to the church, he organises and holds it together like a head does a body. He was supreme in the beginning and leading the resurrection parade. He is supreme in the end. From beginning to end, he's there, towering above everything and everyone. So spacious is he, so roomy, that everything of God finds its proper place in him without crowding. Not only that, but all the broken and dislocated pieces of the universe, people and things, animals and atoms, get properly fixed and fit together in vibrant harmonies, all because of his death, his blood, then poured down from the cross. You yourselves are a case study of what he does. At one time, you all had your backs turned to God, thinking rebellious thoughts of him, giving him trouble every chance you got. But now, by giving himself completely at the cross, actually dying for you, Christ brought you over to God's side and put your lives together, whole and holy in his presence. You don't walk away from a gift like that. You stay grounded and steady in that bond of trust, constantly tuned into the message, careful not to be distracted or diverted. There is no other message, just this one. Every creature under heaven gets this same message. I, Paul, am a messenger of this message.
Heavenly Father, we ask that all of us in different ways would experience the truth of those words this morning. We ask it in your Son's name. Amen. Before we start, a memory came back to me this morning that I don't know how many of you in the 1960s remember something called a space hopper. Some of the younger ones, I'm not sure why you remember it. It was a big orange inflatable ball with handles and a smiley face on it. And I remember having one on Christmas morning, waking up after breakfast, going in for the presents, and having this wonderful, big, bouncy ball, and going outside. Everybody else had a bike, but I had a space hopper. Everybody cycling around and bouncing down the street on this smiley space hopper. It's very difficult to wave, actually, but saying hello to whoever's on the street. And enjoyed it on Christmas Day, Boxing morning, got up, went through to the kitchen, we had breakfast, and my space hopper was there warming up by the fire. And you can guess what happened. Being so close to the fire and being plastic, it didn't quite pop, but it began to swell in an unsightly way. And I took it outside. My dad threw cold water over to cool it down. And now I had, as he called it, a unique space hopper. One which looked like he had mumps. It was this big protuberance on the side of his face. And his smile didn't quite look like a smile. And every time I went down the street, it was looking like I was going around corners, because it just wouldn't bounce straight. From then on, I kept... But, interestingly enough, on Boxing Day morning in South Wales, there was a lot of children out with their various toys, and they gravitated to this space hopper. It was different. It wasn't the same as everybody else's space hopper. When you bounced on this thing, you came off quite quickly, and they found that was fun. And so suddenly, I had a group of friends around me, and we were able to explore how to enjoy this most unusual space hopper, unique, as I say. And that's something about what we're going to explore this morning. In fact, in this, the fourth, I think, of these talks on why the church shouldn't do mission, and we really need to move quite fast to stop it from doing so, is because, yes, we're different, but as the passage from Colossians reminds us, in that difference we also find unity, and that unity draws us to love. Love is the most important thing. That's the message this morning. So we actually, as this picture shows, stand on a pier, on a platform, where we know where things used to be. It's secure. We know how church should be. We know who God is. We know all the things the church should do and behave. And out in front of us is this open blue sky or blue sea or whatever, open space. And we're not quite sure what we're launching ourselves into, especially as this service. Next slide. And you will see that very often this is secure. This is where we know what we should do. A church should quickly decide what its core values in. We believe in the Trinity. We believe in various things. We have a strategy to communicate it. We must have a vision so all of you get excited about it, and then we head out and do it to others. That's our mission. There's a tiny cross there which keeps bouncing up and down. That's me. I'm saying, no, we don't do any of that. We've got to stop that. And hopefully that little cross which bounces up and down will get bigger as you understand what on earth I'm talking about. Next slide. One of the reasons why mission, I feel, is a drawback and is a sign of the church of the previous 150 years. When the Western world expanded, it decided, yes, Great Britain is good. France believed it as an empire was good, and we then went and explored the rest of the world to teach them what was good by conquering them and putting flags everywhere and turning the map of the world pink. And it is a model of difference. We've got what is good, and we know what is good, and we're going to go over there and take it to them. We're in this place, and we're going to move over there because it's different over there, and we've got to make it the same as where we are here. Next slide. But The New Testament teaches us there's only one commandment now, really, that we should concentrate on. It involves all the other commandments in the end, but the one commandment we concentrate on, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another as I have loved you. To love one another. That's our only task here this morning, is to love one another and to love everybody else. Well, the complication is, if you see people as an object, as a task to do, as a mission, you're not loving them. You are actually seeing them as a project, as something different to you. Next slide. I mentioned at the 9 o'clock service, I wasn't intending to do it here, but I mentioned at the 9 o'clock service the French philosopher Jacques Derrida, leader of postmodernity. We probably won't go into that, but he coined this word, différence, as it says in French. And that's this idea that language no longer works because we all mean different things by the words. If I say cat, all think of a cat. Thinking of a cat? I bet if you could put up on a screen now your picture of a cat, it would be very different to the cat I've got in my mind, very different to the cat someone next to you has got in their mind. And this is what Jacques Derrida means by différence, that language no longer works according to him, because I've described to you a cat, and you haven't got a clue about the cat I'm really describing. The problem with that argument, the problem with the argument of postmodernity in general, is we're still thinking about cats. I mean, you haven't got a picture of a hairy fridge licking a saucer of milk on the beach, have you? You've got a picture of a cat in your mind. So therefore, language still does work. And so it's not as different as we think. So there is complexity, but there is also unity. Next slide. Yes, there is différence. And we will explore that after the service. Again, if you want to explore this with me after the service, and I will point you in the direction of a good library. It's this new idea which is coming about at the end of the 20th century, 21st century. It's called emergent theory. And it's this idea that the world, the universe, is getting more and more complex. But it's our argument and the argument of some of these ideas that underneath all that complexity, there is something which unifies. There is something which brings it all together. Next. And I was just going to mention, as I usually do on these days, to try and provoke people to go off and explore other writings and not just listen to what is spoken from the front. There's a French priest who passed away in the 1960s called Pierre Tilliard de Chardin, a wonderfully grand French name. And he was very highly educated. He went off to Sorbonne and studied science, did all sorts of different things. And he then trained to be a priest. And he went to China because he was a paleontologist to study the geology and the plants and all sorts of things. And he made a mistake of writing a book about the church, a theological book. And he remained in China for the rest of his working life. This book was banned by the Roman Catholic Church. This was a Roman Catholic priest, a theologian, writing about God, writing about what he believed God was and is, and how he could respond to science, and it was banned. One of his quotes, "Our duty as men and women is to proceed as if the limits to our ability did not exist. We, all of us, are collaborators in all of creation, not in just this church, not just in this community, but in everything that goes on." Now, you know as well as I do, if the Roman Catholic Church bans a book, what happens next? Every Roman Catholic wants to go and read that book. So it became a bestseller. And in the 50s and 60s, he then proceeded from China, and then in his retirement to write many books, which became many, many bestsellers. But he, until his death, he remained on the banned list, along with some other Roman Catholic theologians. He wasn't to be spoken of. He wasn't invited to the great conferences. He worked away trying to understand how this universe could be so complex, but also be joined together in one. And what's interesting, as very often happens, after his death, bit by bit, the Roman Catholic Church and the other churches found him fascinating, and he's been studied again, and he's affected the way we think about the church and about God. Next. He also said, "Do not forget that the value and interest of life is not so much to do conspicuous things as to do ordinary things with the perception of their enormous value." And very often when we talk about mission, we talk about it in terms of big projects, in unique things. We've got to go and do this. The word mission is a military word, in a sense. It's we will go out and complete this mission to others. But we are called, as Teilhard de Chardin says, is just to live an ordinary life and to value the ordinary things and to do them well. We do them well by doing them in love. To go out and do things to others. Let us think for a moment, if we believe our mission, for instance, as the church has done many tasks down through the years, many churches, we might be involved in an appeal, we might raise things for other places, we might take things to other places, and all these things are good. If you go down the road to Llantryston Golf Club, they may be doing the same project. If you go to any one of the pubs in this area and you sit down at lunch, there will be people caring for each other and loving each other. Are they doing something which is different to what we're doing here? No. If you put together all the different elements of our community, we're all very often involved in the same task, which is living a life as best we can and loving those we are called to love. So describing sometimes some tasks that we do as mission makes us seem as if we've elevated ourselves above the rest of the community, when actually we're called to be part of our community. And what the new science is showing is that we're all interlinked anyway, and we can't get away from that. So rather than us being a remnant who goes to them, we're called to love together with each other. And in the way we love, in the quality of that love, we will share what we know about Christ. Next slide. So there's a picture of Pierre. This is the final quote for him. "Someday, after mastering the winds, the waves, the tides and gravity, we shall harness for God the energies of love, and for a second time in the history of the world, man will have discovered fire." He was a great scientist. He realised that the church was being left behind by science in the way that it described and understood our creation. But he also knew that the one thing that humanity has to discover, if it's going to look after each other and look after our creation, is the power, unique unifying ability of what undergirds all of creation, all of the universe, and that is God's love. And when we connect to God's love, which doesn't cause difference, but causes us to become closer together, that is when we'll harness a power which will change the world. So, at the moment, that's just the word love lightly sketched out. And what our role will be to do as a congregation, as LLAN, will be to explore and build on what has been done in the past. But how can love be explored and shared with others within our community? So finally then, this is probably one of the earliest pieces of Christian art. It's around about 180 AD, 200 AD. And so by then, the New Testament had been written, many hymns had been written, and there probably was lots of Christian art before it, but it didn't last because it was done on pieces of parchment, etc. But this was actually on the wall of a catacomb. It was a catacomb to Priscilla, and you might recognise that name, not Elvis Presley's wife, but Priscilla from the New Testament. She's mentioned at the end of Romans and other letters. Priscilla and Aquila. And they had houses. They were quite wealthy. We believe probably they were widows, their husbands had passed away, and they offered their homes and their property to the early apostles like Paul. And for the work that she did for the church, she was revered, and many stories and prayers are written about Priscilla. So, well over 100 years after she had died, they named birds of the air, and he's been a shepherd to all of creation. But what's interesting about this picture of the early church, which Priscilla and Aquila point to, is what we have here at the moment is something the church, the early church, didn't do very often. What we have here in Jewish terms is a temple, is a wonderful, beautiful building. And they would go to the temple once every 3 months, sometimes once a year. Church, for the early church, with Priscilla, Aquila, Paul, and all the apostles, was in a home. It was homely. It was where they expressed love to each other, if fun, joy, some of the other things we've talked over the coming weeks. So find the picture. That is more likely a picture of what the early church was like. If you can imagine being on a Scottish isle, the winter's drawing in, and all the villagers, there's no one left at home, they've drawn everybody out to the pub, someone's picked up an instrument, someone else is telling a funny story, someone else is reading a poem which makes everybody cry because it reminds them of someone who's long gone. Conversation is shared, gossip is shared, life is expressed and celebrated, and everybody sings together. That is what clan should be attempting to create on a Sunday morning, as we are with the worship band. That sense of home, that sense of creation being a place where God makes his home. God is not far off in a home somewhere else. He chooses to make his home with us because we're expressing what is really at the heart of this universe, and that is God's love. Not a task, not a burden, not an objective to do something to others, but to be at the heart of where God is, and that is to express love in all its holiness, in all its joy, in all its fun, in all its beauty, and in all its steadfastness, to be with others when they are struggling to experience that love and joy. Hopefully then, that's a bit of a glimpse into why we will not be exploring mission, but be exploring love in all its joy. Amen. Oh, we've got something we brought to the front.
Oh, sorry.
No, is this what you built at the back today? Is it a crib for... I can see an elephant and... Shall I show everybody what you've created? What have you created? It's a bit early for a manger. We've got a baby in here and an elephant. That's a Christmas tree. And there's... Sorry? Oh, right. Awesome. Sharing and looking after, showing love to a baby. Excellent. How are you going to look after the baby now? Is he going to have some refreshments? There's some excitement. Jesus. One other thing is that what has struck us as we thought about how to explore this theme is that because of restrictions, we have spent a lot less time with each other over the past 18 months. And some of us are new to this community, and it takes a while to get to know each other. And one of the ways that not only the church, but just communities down through the ages have got to know each other is by visiting each other's homes, as I described the early church at the end of our talk. And I know here, for instance, before I arrived, you had groups such as Ponder, which was a small group which met in cafes in different places, and it is meeting again now to explore passages of the Bible. But I just wanted to suggest to you how you feel about, in the coming weeks, that I start the odd house group here and there for all of us to be able to join. Some of it might be Bible study, some of it might be just having a meal cooked for you at different times and just maybe exploring the odd drink or two and idea as well. Others will be focused maybe on something that we want to do. We want a project or something which we want to do together. So after the service, when we're enjoying refreshments, we're going to explore maybe in conversation if you'd like to come up with ideas, or yes, you're willing to maybe go now into someone's home and to be able to share cake and tea and drink and food and conversation. If you're willing to do that, then we're ready to begin to set up those house groups, because that's really where we'll draw on that community of love which we're going to build in the heart of this service. Anyway, for now, let us turn to Christ in prayer. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we're at this stage in the life of our community, after the time we've had, that we long for love, for all that love brings, that sense of security, that sense of belonging, that sense of not being on one's own, facing all of life's issues, but knowing that we have people who will offer companionship, who will travel with us. We pray that people will find those aspects of love in this place and in this congregation. Help us to develop the tools by which we can share that love with others. We ask it in your Son's name. Amen. Amen. Now the blessing of God Almighty, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit be upon all of you this day and always. Amen.